Hello and welcome to this edition of Dr. Clark Reports. I'm your host, Dr. Gary Clark, and my guest is my friend and leader, Dr. Toya Barnes-Teamer, who's the Vice President for Student Affairs and Student Success at Dillard University. And Dr. Teamer, greetings and welcome, my friend.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a long time coming, so I'm glad to be here with you.
Absolutely. And you're the Vice President for Student Success at Dillard University, and you're one of our leaders on the campus, and you're my leader as well. Just tell us about the nature and structure of Student Success Office and what you do, because I know you wear so many hats at the university because you're everywhere, so I'm fortunate to have you on the program this morning. But tell me about it, yes.
So, I've been at Dillard since March of 2007, and as a Vice President for Student Success, I actually started with enrollment management and student support services, so recruitment and retention. It then morphed into transitioning student affairs as a part of the Division of Student Success, and so I was able to manage several of the major areas on campus: recruitment, admissions, retention, financial aid and scholarships, records and registration, as well as housing, campus police, student support services where we provide tutoring, counseling for our students, and also really the purpose of the division is exactly what's in the name, which is student success, which is what I love about what I do. So our goal is really to focus on, once we get those students into Dillard University, ensuring that they're a good match for the institution, for their success, for retention and graduation.
Well, that's a wide umbrella, to say the least. And at the top of that, I would think, should I say at the forefront of that, is recruitment.
Yes.
And tell us about recruitment. How does that recruitment process operate? I know you have a team beneath you and that works well with you. How does that work?
Well, what's interesting about this year is with the incoming president, Dr. Walter Kimbrough, he said the same thing you said. Dr. Teamer, you got a lot of stuff on your plate. And so one of the things that we are aggressively trying to do and really pay attention to right now is on the recruitment side of the house. And so as of July, we actually hired someone to assist in that area, Mr. David Page, who's the Vice President for Enrollment Management. But what happens in that area, we actually have an enrollment recovery plan. It's a plan that we've had since Katrina. And what we're doing now is we're moving away from it being an enrollment recovery plan to an enhanced enrollment plan. So David gets to focus solely on recruiting students to the university. What we're doing now, since our residence halls are back up and running, is we're going back to the focus at Dillard where we had 60% students from out of state and then 40% of our students were from in-state. Right now we have more 60% in-state, 40% out of state. So with the residence halls being back on track, David is now restructuring that plan to strategically reach out to other areas to be able to get students back into the university.
Right, and I know historically many of the students at the university come from pockets such as California, Chicago, Alabama, Texas.
Yes, Texas is big, California is big. A lot of Dillard's alums actually migrated to those areas when, a long time ago when we couldn't find jobs in this area, all the jobs were there. So we have a great pipeline from California, Chicago, Detroit, Texas. And we actually have very strong alumni in those areas who help us to recruit students from those areas to get them back to Dillard University.
And that works real well, does it not?
Oh yeah, we have, the organization is actually called DUPAN. It's the Dillard University Parent and Alumni Admissions Network, and we actually utilize our chapters to help us recruit in those areas. We also created a program several years ago called Each One Reach One. So for every alumni, if they can just identify one child in their community where they make that referral back to Dillard University, if those young people apply and are admitted to the university, we waive their application fee and then they get $1,000 off of their tuition.
That's major. That's a great incentive, to say the least.
Yeah.
Now, within that umbrella that you have the recruitment aspect of it, and you have the facilities fit into that as well.
Resident residential life.
The residential life, yes.
Yes. And so that's been one of the areas that I feel like has been the most challenging for us, because we needed to get our residence halls back up and running, because we really did need to focus on more student engagement on the main campus. So people would ride by Dillard and say, oh, I remember when I first got there, there's not a whole lot of student life going on. Well, we had a lot of our students living off campus, and we had more commuter students, but we are very excited to have Straight Hall, Camphor Hall back up and running. Hartzell will be open in January, so that now we have the majority of our students back on the main campus, which provides for a different atmosphere and environment for student life.
But also within that same rubric, many of the students, they live in apartments that's owned by the university, and
Correct.
to have that apartment lifestyle and the independence of living, I think, is a plus.
Yeah, and actually it helps with retention, because the students that we allow to live in those apartments are upperclassmen. So you actually have to go through the other residence halls, and then you get to Gentilly Gardens when you're a junior or a senior.
Are they allowed to choose their roommates when they go into apartments?
Yeah, they have a time frame that they have to do that. And if they don't do it by the time we expect them to, we do assign, but at any point they can ask for roommate changes.
Oh yes. Now, also in looking at what you do, I like the fact that it's called student success.
I love that.
Yes, and because that's an indicator to me in terms of what the university feels about its student body and population.
Well, you're correct, and actually, you know, as a part of our strategic plan, pillar number 5 is that Dillard University will focus on the success of all of its students. And so one of the things that really attracted me to the position was the title. You know, to be the Vice President for Student Success reminds me on a daily basis what I'm supposed to be doing. And for those individuals that work within that division, they know that we're the division for student success. So our whole focus is on student success, but we don't let the other units off, you know, from being responsible as well. So we created the motto that student success at Dillard University is everybody's business.
Oh, absolutely, and you can't escape that. But,
No.
but within that as well is this whole concept of retention.
Yes, and actually that's a big one. You know, so as a historically black college and university, and because Dillard is a small university, you know, we really talk about the nurturing environment. We talk about the faculty, staff, numbers towards our student numbers as far as the ratio. Our students talk a lot when you ask them, why are you still at Dillard University? They will say, because of my faculty, because of my program. And so retention becomes very important, not just within the academic environment, but also what is it that we're offering to our students to support them. So under student success is retention, but retention actually starts from recruitment. So we should be recruiting students that we know meet the needs that Dillard has to offer those students from the beginning. So we're not just out telling students, oh, come to Dillard, you know, everybody can be successful at Dillard. We want students to know this is what we have to offer. Tell us what you're interested in, and if that matches, then we want you to come to Dillard, and we'll provide the support services that you need to be successful. So around that retention model, our model is the model for student success. And so we put the student in the middle. Then you have academics, social, emotional. And because Dillard is a United Methodist Church and United Church of Christ institution, we also include spiritual. We talk about financial, because with our young people, you know, they need the resources to be able to assist them to be successful in those environments.
And I like the fact that you're able to look at that abstract and then make it and give it a real construct that you can identify and a visual that you can see.
Yes.
How do you get your staff people to buy into that concept?
Well, it's really not difficult.
Yes.
As a part of, when I got there, you know, you inherit staff. So because it was a new division, you know, there were individuals who had originally been reporting on the academic affairs side. They may have been reporting on the pure student affairs side. They may have been reporting in another area. And so I have this team of leaders sitting around the room, and they're looking at me, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, look, this is what they hired me to do. Here's my job description. This speaks to what it is we're supposed to be focusing on. So you tell me of what it is you're doing at Dillard University. How does that tie into the success of our students? And from that point, That's how we determine that this is what's important to us. So you can't get caught up in politics and personality. If people remember that the purpose of being at Dillard is for the success of our students, then we shouldn't have any problems. And as we bring in new staff, I meet with all new staff. So I talk to all new staff about the philosophy of the institution around student success, the division and what our role is around student success. I evaluate people on student success. We assess all of the things that we're doing to determine that what we're doing is actually assisting our students in their success.
But what has brought you your greatest joy to date? The one accomplishment that you can say, you know what, this is what I've done, this is what I like, and this is what I see as something which is substantial that I can hang my hat on.
Honestly, it's individualized. You know, a lot of people say, oh, well, we met these recruitment numbers, or we raised the retention rate by this. But for me, it's seeing those students go down the Avenue of the Oaks and across that stage for graduation, understanding their story from the time they got there, either as a first-time full-time freshman, as a transfer student, as an adult learner, that they did what they needed to do at Dillard to get that piece of paper to provide for not just access, but success in their careers.
Now, Dr. Barnes' team, you know what I like about that is that you strayed away from the data and went right down to the micro level and looked at the individual.
Yes.
That's what becomes more important. It's not about the data, it's about the students themselves.
It is.
Him or herself.
It is.
Now, you also have interaction with our leadership as well, the legislative leadership, because from time to time, don't you have to go and embrace and work with the legislators and politicals in our community as well to let them know what we do?
We have to.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of things that happen, even from the federal government. We have the challenges with the PLUS loan, which is impacting our, especially African-American youth in historically black colleges and universities, and the impact on their ability to afford to even have the access for their success. So staying on top of what's happening with the government with the PLUS loans, staying on top of what's happening with the government with Pell Grants, even with the healthcare issues, because when you start talking about young people and their health and how, whether it's physical health, emotional health, psychological health, how that impacts their ability to be successful in that environment, we have to stay on top of those issues, understand what's happening, and communicate to our local leaders and our leaders in Baton Rouge and our leaders at the federal level that your decision making actually is impacting what's going on our college campuses.
And it affects the development of graduation rates, retention rates, and also, and in the final analysis, building the black middle class.
That is correct. And so I think we really need to stay focused on that. I know some days it's just like, oh my God, we have one more thing that we have to try to deal with. We're trying to focus on the students, but we have all these environmental issues that we do need to pay attention to. And luckily for us at Dillard University, we have a president that's in tune to that. You have a cabinet that's in tune to that. So all of the vice presidents are paying attention to the legal aspects of what they do in the legislation that's coming down from the federal level to the state level to the local level that impacts what we do and our benefit to support and serve our students.
Now, and also in the same concept, I know you also work with parents.
Oh my goodness, yes.
You know, for a while they talked about this whole phenomenon of helicopter parents, whatever it may be, but your parental involvement with your office.
Well, Gary, I hate to tell you, I'm probably one of those helicopter parents. If you ask my daughter, who is a sophomore in college, and then I have a senior that's graduating, and then I have a junior next year. So I understand the phenomena of the helicopter parent. And honestly, it does not challenge me, because what I like to do with those helicopter parents is, you know, just try to remind them of what their place is. You know, you have done what you need to do to give your child a foundation to be successful. So at some point, you have to trust the work that you've done with them for the past 17 to 18 years to be able to do what they need to do, and understand that at Dillard University, I become that second parent. And so I will take those young people. Now, because of FERPA laws and things like that, there's only specific things that we can talk to parents about and share with parents, but we do work with the parents and we work with the young people. Honestly, the group that I get concerned with, or young people whose parents, because they may not have been exposed to a college education, may not know how to support those young people. And so I like to actually spend more time with Dr. Bastian and his group in student support services through our pre-collegiate programs, Upward Bound, Educational Talent Search, meeting with parents prior to those young people coming into the four-year environment to give them the skills and the tools that they need to be supportive of those young people.
Of all of the offices and that reside at the university, I think that yours is indeed the most holistic in terms of your activities and what you do and your approach. And again, I would like to remind my viewing audience that I'm Gary Clark. I'm speaking with my friend Dr. Toya Barnes-Teamer, who is the Vice President for Student Success at Dillard University. And I know you and your family, we've been friends for so long.
Yes.
But please tell my viewing audience the Dr. Toya Barnes-Teamer story.
Well,
Yes.
my journey began in the lower 9. So I am one of 6. I'm the 4th of 6 to Emmanuel and Dolores Barnes. I'm very proud of my parents. I'm a first-generation college student. I graduated from St. Mary's Academy, but I do have to say that I attended St. David, and I also attended Edison. And I would have to give a shout-out to my principal at Thomas Alva Edison Elementary School, Dr. Anita H. Crump, because Dr. Crump really was one of my first administrative role models. I love the way she managed that school, and so, I really appreciated how she carried herself and her commitment to that school, and that really inspired me around education. Attending St. Mary's Academy, well, because your
yes.
wife went there, she was one of my youngest sisters. They instilled in us, being African-American women, that we could do anything we want to do if we set our minds to it. They gave us the background and the skills that we needed. They prepared me to be able to then go on to Loyola University. My undergraduate degree is in graphic art communications. My master's degree is also from Loyola in counseling, which really helps me in my role as a vice president for student success. And I have my PhD from the University of New Orleans. So that's kind of my background. I've been in higher education for over 25 years. I'm married to a wonderful man, Roderick F. Teamer Sr., and have 3 wonderful children, Ty, Tia, and Rod Jr. And I just love what I do. I love my community, and I feel like I've been blessed to be able to move up in higher education and not have to leave this city.
Well, your development represents a real good mix and blend, and it represents the sort of mix and blend that one sees growth and development.
Yes.
And you talk about your growing up in here and your development here and your influences here. But when you put all of that together, well, how would you sum it up in terms of what your expectations are as an educational professional?
Well, my expectations
and desire, yes.
Well, honestly, my desire would be to actually see our state numbers going in a different direction for young people graduating from high school. My desire would be to see more of our young people either going to the community college for technical skills, getting their associate degrees, or coming into the 4-year environment to get those bachelor's degrees, master's degrees. One of the things that my dad always said to me, somebody can take everything from you, but the one thing that they can't take from you is your education and your mind.
Absolutely. They can't take your education away or your mind. Yes.
And I think our people really need to get back to the point where they understand that education is going to be key, not just to financial success, but also to support for families and being able to move our community forward. I'm just very passionate about education, and one of the things I did mention to you as a first-generation college student is that I also attended Upward Bound at Southern University in New Orleans. 2 of my other true mentors there, Neri Warner was one of the persons, and then actually Dr. Norman Roussel, who who is a Dillard
and has been on this program before, yes.
And who was my boss at Loyola. Those administrators, those educators, administrators also had a passion for what they were doing, and they had a drive, and they spoke the truth to me as a young person being developed, along with my family. And so I want to be able to do that for other young people. I want other young people to remember me when they're on the show and say, Dr. Tima helped me get to where I am today, because I've had so many people being supportive and moving me forward.
Well, interesting enough, we live in a community. We have so many great universities,
yes,
that had their own niche on the national platform and global platform. But yet we find that on the secondary level that we're in a state of flux in terms of educating these individuals, young people, and the Common Core. All of these wars that we have on the state and local level in terms of trying to develop the minds of these young people. What do you say about this mix that we have here in Orleans Parish and also in the state in terms of the secondary level?
Well,
before they get to you, to get them prepared for you.
Honestly, it's been challenging even at the higher ed level, trying to follow the landscape, because you got to follow the landscape to get to the students. And so I know in our pre-collegiate programs, we find a lot of times that we have to stay on top of this, because we're trying to educate parents about their choices. So when you look at the fact that we have the New Orleans public school system, then you have the RSD, then you have the charter schools, then you have all these other types of schools that are popping up, trying to make sure that we're staying on top of this and being able to help parents maneuver the system. But one of the things that I would like to say to parents is, sometimes we may not have a choice about where our students may land in a specific secondary environment based on our neighborhood, or whether or not our child does well on a standardized test or an admissions test to get into those environments. But the one thing we do control, because we don't control that, is what we do to support our child's education. So sometimes I find that we spend a lot of time focusing on the battle of what's best for the community. Is it the charter schools, the different types of schools? And what I would say that we probably really need to focus on is, what is the education that my child getting in the school where they are? And as parents, understanding that you also have the power to be involved in your child's education. So like with my parents, they did not complete a college education, but they were very supportive of me getting that college education. My dad always said, look, I want y'all to do better than I did. And, of course, we want that for our own children. So we have developed some programs at Dillard through our pre-collegiate programs to really, we meet with parents and we talk to parents about FAFSA, what that means, how to apply for financial aid, why is it important that you have to provide your income tax information. We talk about the ACT score. We provide free ACT prep. And so a lot of times parents don't know where that information resides. And I think as a higher ed administrator, sometimes we've said, well, that's the responsibility of secondary. But if we don't partner with secondary and we don't engage with secondary, then we don't have that pipeline to get to higher education.
You're absolutely correct. So the partnership and the engagement, and then when you develop it, then as you said before, you have a pipeline.
Yes.
And then you develop trust, and then you have a good recruiting environment. What I think.
That's correct.
Now, the profile of the student at the university now. What's the profile that you deal with? Because I know someone listening would say, what is the profile of the Dillard student? The academic profile, the socioeconomic profile when they bring that child there?
Well, and yes. Honestly, I have to tell you that the academic profile has not changed that drastically. So we have our top kids, like everybody else had. You have your top honor students that get our top scholarships to attend the university. You have a group of students that come in under conditional enrollment standards. They may have the grade point average. They may be short 1 point on the ACT. We bring those students in as well. But the bell curve is actually those middle students, those C+ students or better, who are motivated to come to Dillard and to get their education. So we're actually serving that bell curve. For those students that are coming in that are conditional admits, we have a program called Emerging Scholars. So we bring them in the summer to work on their areas of deficiency, whether that's math, reading, or English. But we also do orientation with them, and then we also provide support services with tutoring and other things that they need. And especially if they're first generation, then they need to understand, how do I maneuver this thing called college? Because they don't really know that, and there's not been anybody to assist them with that. With our the top of the bell curve students, those students come in with certain levels of motivation, but they also come in, some of them, with a lot of emotional baggage. There's been an increase nationally with young people who are coming in with learning disabilities, whether it's, you know, ADHD, ADA, just different types of learning disabilities. It doesn't mean that they can't be successful. They just need specific help. But you know, Dillard students, look, we're everywhere. We have students in Washington, and I don't always want to just talk about that 10 to 15% that's at the top of the spectrum. I do like to talk about all of our students, but those at the top of the spectrum, these students are studying abroad. You know, we're the only institution in the nation that's participating in the Melton Foundation, where our students actually get to study abroad with students from Chile and other countries. You know, we have our professors, Dr. Fugard, that takes our students to Ghana. We have, you know, Dr. Iguike that takes our students to Nigeria. You have Dr. Dai that takes our students to China. So we have students doing all kinds of things with internships. Actually, we have a young man right now who is working as an assistant for the mayor that just graduated from Dillard University.
Right, and that's the way it works. And,
yes.
One of my students was a political science student who was served yet last year as a White House intern.
Yes.
And so the mix is there, and I ask you that because I know you service all of this.
Yes.
And the one area that we're in, we have 2 minutes remaining, but the one area that you did not address, you also handle security.
Oh, yes. I have campus
Which is
security.
most important.
Oh, God, yes.
Yes.
And when we talk about, you know, things that's happening nationwide, and people hear things about what happened, you know, with Virginia Tech and all of these things that are happening on college campuses, we actually have a new chief of police, Dr. Gary Williams, who is staying on top of emergency preparedness. We just had a meeting to discuss, you know, what happens at Dillard if there was an active shooter, or what happens at Dillard if you have an issue in the classroom with one of our students, making sure that that campus is safe and secure. You know, we are closed in, so we're in a gated community, but we don't want to just lean on that. We want to make sure that we're being proactive about the safety and security of our students, our faculty, and our staff.
And Dr. Team, I want to thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's been outstanding.
So much.
And again, I want to thank my viewing audience for tuning in. And as always, it's been a pleasure.